Vous avez mal?
Chronic pain.
Douleur intense.
Pain.
Douleur.
La douleur chronique.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shajenth. I am one of the co-directors of PAINtalks this year for the 6th edition, PAINtalks 2021. I'm joined today by Maria, who was the Canadian Pain Society or CPS speaker at PAINtalks 2020. Also joined by Jamie, who was the NAPS or North American Pain School speaker for PAINtalks 2019. So how are you both doing?
Thank you.
I'm doing well.
Good. Okay, perfect. So just to get the ball rolling, I'll start off with just asking you guys, how did you find the whole overall experience of talking at PAINtalks? How did you find the evening of the event? How did you find the whole application process as well? Was it smooth? Were there any hiccups? So I think we'll start off with Maria. What do you think?
Well, I'm afraid my answer won't be super typical because we had one gigantic hiccup that was second wave of COVID. So since I'm based in Calgary, unfortunately, I could not come and participate in the event in person. Instead, I had a very unique experience of pre-recording my presentation at a professional studio. So just that was very different compared to any conferences or anything like that. But I have to say the team who organized PAINtalks were incredible. Like the only thing that I had to do was show up at the address, and that was about it, and prepare my speech. There were no hiccups. Everything went absolutely smoothly, and the whole experience, I remember it as an incredible adventure at this point.
And how about you, Jamie? What did you think?
I thought it was a really great experience. I was lucky enough to have done it before the pandemic and everything in 2019. And as I guess the NAPS speaker, it was a lot simpler than I thought it would be. I think that was probably because it was the first year that NAPS was was represented in the PAINtalks, which I thought was really cool. And I think because of maybe like the number of people, I think our year only got probably like a month's worth of notice or something for the PAINtalks application, but like even a month for what you guys required was actually really simple, more simple than I thought it would be. So in terms of the application process, it was much more simpler than I thought it would be. And I would encourage anyone that went to NAPS to apply, because you don't have to be of the current year. You can be of any of the years that NAPS has been going on. The venue and everything was really fantastic. It was extremely professional, and probably more professional than any of the other conferences I've been to. And one of the great things I really like about PAINtalks is it really encourages patient engagement. And that's not something that I see a lot as a basic scientist. Most of the time we are in our labs doing bench work, wet lab work, and we are really, really far from actually seeing patients. And so that's why I wanted to apply to be part of PAINtalks as a basic scientist, is because we, at least my year for NAPS, we had patient representatives, and they were extremely helpful in understanding like some of the work. And as basic scientists, we are removed from actually seeing like what our discoveries and mechanisms, and educating some of the people that are actually being affected by what we discover.
Absolutely. And that was something I really wanted to touch upon, because right now we have two very different perspectives. Jamie, you being a basic scientist, and Maria, you being a more clinical scientist. So, it's not always that as basic scientists, we get the chance to engage with the patient audience as well. And then Maria, I know, even though as a clinical scientist, you do get a lot more of that opportunities, it's not the same experience as with PAINtalks where you're on an auditorium and like, speaking to a whole crowd of them. It's very, it's very different, even though of course for you, it was more on YouTube and you spoke to an audience on there, but regardless, it's still the same effect that you're having on these patients, right? So I just wanted to ask both of you, what actually pushed you to apply for PAINtalks? And did you guys ever hesitate or think about, why would I do this? So Jamie, I think we'll start with you this time.
So I actually get extremely nervous when I do any sort of presentations. And one of the things that my graduate advisor, Ted Price, was probably some of the best advice he's ever given me is like, if you're nervous, do it. Apply for every chance that you have the opportunity to stand up in front of people and give a talk. And so that's what drove me to do it. My actual 3-minute recording to submit was probably not even close to being good. And so I was really surprised when I was chosen. But that's kind of what drove me to giving the talk. And not only that is I would have the opportunity to work with the Quebec Quebec Network Junior Pain Investigators. And I've heard a lot about that group. And for me as a trainee, even in the US, it's well known. And so I wanted to meet you guys and know how you guys kind of set everything up. And so that kind of drove me to apply. And
how about you, Maria?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have to say there were no hesitations. Just like Jamie, I do get very nervous talking to an audience, whether it's more researchers or patient partners or just general public. And I mean, being a psychologist, I know exposure works. So do what you're afraid and nervous to do. And plus, I knew it was a very unique event. So I know some people who applied last year's and got to do PAINtalks, and it just looked cool. Very different stage whole event. Too bad it didn't happen this year. And at the same time, I did get a chance to talk about my research to people who wouldn't necessarily learn or hear about it without this talk. Yeah, the application, I remember it took me about 3 hours to record those 3 minutes, and it was absolutely worth it. But yeah, no hesitations. And if anyone has hesitations, please talk to me. Bring them apart.
Yeah, so I think, it's always nice to try, especially with something that's just so different from the norm of what you usually get with events and conferences. I think it's always great to try your hand at it, and see if, see what comes of it. So we did really, we already touched on what we find different about the conference of PAINtalks itself compared to other events. But I was just wondering, how about any challenges that you guys might have faced during your time preparing for the event itself, or at the event too? So I think we'll start with Maria. Were there any challenges that you wanted to talk about?
I guess the main challenge was to take all of the scientific talk and words and statistical significance and turn it into, just English that people can actually understand. And I have no idea how basic scientists do that, because their stuff is just that much more complicated. But still, the usual definitions and just notions that we operate in research, whether clinical or basic, is quite removed from everyday conversation. That was the biggest challenge. Take that and turn it into a captivating story that is told in language that anyone can understand. It was challenging, and I enjoyed doing it very much because it allowed to think about my research, my project at a different level, kind of understand it better. If that makes sense.
And how about you, Jamie?
Yeah, I completely agree with Maria. Sort of translating everything that we do, we're so used to talking to other scientists and they knowing exactly what we're talking about. Like my talk was based off of calcium and the way that calcium can be affected in pain. And so I really have to think of like, okay, well, what do people think of when they hear calcium? It's like, oh, it's milk. People think about milk and bones and how much they need to drink. And so, but it was really challenging, and it's not something that I'm in the frame of mind thinking about. And so like doing the pain talks was extremely challenging, and not trying to like get like into the weeds of any of my research. Like if I were to have showed a graph of what I like am actually like publishing, I think it would have taken me another 15 minutes to like clearly explain myself, and that would have gotten me into the weeds, and I think it would have just lost a lot of people because it loses basic scientists sometimes when you're going through a particular graph. And so it was extremely challenging for me to kind of like translate all of that research into something that's digestible.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, and like coming to your the talk itself, how did you guys find the experience of working with Denis Francois? It was must have been quite an experience. Jamie, I think we'll start with you this time.
I thought he was great. He really helped, especially in the private sessions. I actually requested a third session because I really needed a lot of help. And like the way that he kind of like talked about, you know, like make things personal. And so like I made things personal, which made things a lot easier to, I think, the audience to relate to. Like I got a couple people come up to me afterwards and talk to me about like some of my experiences and my stories. And I thought that really helped in terms of relating my experiences and my research to the audience, and the audience could relate back to me. And hopefully it made it interesting for them as well. But yeah, Francois was great. I really appreciated all of his help. He like kind of calmed me down before I went up on the stage because it was very nerve-wracking for me.
For sure, yeah, it's a very valuable skill, being able to sort and essentially popularize your presentation to the general public. How about you, Maria? How did you find your experience of working with Denis Francois?
Really great. I think it was the first time for me working with a professional person like who coaches people to give speeches for a living. And I think the greatest lesson for me was that I have like 5 or 10 seconds to grab the attention of the public. So no long introductions, no this or that, no, just go directly for the hook, for the message that is going to grab the attention and keep the attention. And same, I'm using that quite a lot in any talks that I'm giving now, in any presentations, whether it's general public or researchers. I really appreciated the individual sessions and very specific questions that he had for me about the story that I'm telling. I've always wanted to learn more about storytelling and the structure of the story, but you know how it is. You never actually get to do that. And here he had a specific template and worked through step by step. What is it that I'm trying to communicate and how to wrap it in a fascinating story formula. So it was really great. I appreciated working with him.
Absolutely. And, you know, coming to a lot of the skills that you gain from these kind of trainings, did you guys happen to gain anything else from this PAINtalks experience in terms of visibility for your research, for example, or, you know, any other skills that you might have attained over the time? So, Maria, I think we'll start with you this time.
The first thing that jumped to my mind was that I finally was able to send a link to like my family and friends that clearly explains what is it that I do. I've been doing for the past several years. Yeah, definitely it increases the visibility. It adds very unique experience, I'd say, to both my CV that, is helpful for different things, and to me as a person. It's an experience that I remember that shaped how I present my research, and really changed how I talk about my research. What are the things that really click with the audience? And things that are important for me to really make sure I make them known. Yeah.
And how about you, Jamie?
Yeah, so I think I did get a lot more visibility, especially in Canada, because most of the people that I work with are all in the US. And so I think that really helped like crossing that border and getting a little bit more visibility in Canada, because you guys have a fantastic pain field. You guys have the Canadian Pain Society, and you're doing all of these really great things. So it was nice to do PAINtalks to kind of like break into that as someone from the US. In terms of like the other things that I gained like professionally, one of the things that they often talk about for us as like scientists is what they call like an elevator talk. And the idea is like, you're in an elevator with a stranger and you have like 3 minutes to pitch an idea to them and tell them like what you're doing and why it's important. And so that's what PAINtalks really helped me with as well, is to try and like engage the person and then try and like make things very clear and succinct without overselling it. And I think that was extremely useful. It's not something that we often practice in any of like our career development. And so I think that was extremely useful and beneficial for my career.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And, coming to the fact that you are a basic scientist, something that I wanted to ask was, we see a lot with our applicant pool that a large majority of them are clinical scientists, but we do want that, perspective of a basic scientist there as well. And I just wanted to get your opinion on why you think it's important for basic scientists to be a part of an event like this, and how we can sort of, how and why it's important for them to share their research to the general public.
So I think it's extremely important to talk about our research as basic scientists. Often we are in our labs very focused on a particular molecule or a very particular pathway, and we're often zoned in. And we're not really thinking about, well, where is this going? How is this going to be developed? What is the useful thing that I'm doing here? And so like it makes things really hard as basic scientists, because most of the time things do fail. We have like research is kind of like insanity, where you're doing the same thing over and over again until you hit that 1% success rate. And that 1% success rate is fantastic. It's the greatest feeling in the world. Like you find something and it works, and the theory and your hypothesis is amazing. But then like oftentimes I feel like we don't really go further into thinking, well, actually, do you know how impactful this could be? Do you have any idea how this could help the people that we're researching for? Like in the end, I feel like we lose, we're so tunnel vision that we lose like the whole picture, the forest, I guess, of actually seeing how we could be benefiting the lives of people. Most people think, which is probably true, that basic sciences is so far away from developing therapies, but that's not always the case. Not only that is, like patients, because we don't talk to patients very often, we could get their input on like what they're feeling. Like most of the time we do preclinical work in animals, and we develop these models based off of what we think, what clinicians tell us. And so oftentimes it's like a middleman. And so if you have a middleman, some things are, you're playing the telephone game. And so if you're playing the telephone game, some things aren't translated perfectly. And so just getting out there and talking to people and what you're researching as a basic scientist, even if it's something like PAINtalks and talking to patient engagement, for basic scientists, I think is extremely useful and really important. Like you'll probably notice something, or a patient will say something that is really unique to a particular phenotype, I guess, of a pain condition that you never knew of before, but you think, oh, well, I've actually seen that in an animal model. And, you know, you can start to like have a lot more translatability in that sense. So that's, I think basic scientists should really try. I think a lot of the hesitancy with basic scientists to apply for this is something that I felt when I applied. If you go back and like look at my 3-minute video for when my application is, you'll hear a lot of jargon. You'll hear a lot of things that you're just like, what is she talking about? Because it's true, it's really hard to kind of communicate what you're doing in the research to the general public, but it's so important, and I can't really emphasize how important it is without you actually like getting out there and doing it.
Yeah, that's really well put. You know, as a basic scientist myself, you know, I totally feel you when it comes to like, I go up to, to work in my lab, and, I'm sort of, shut in, and it's not always that I get to see patients. So, coming to an event like this was like the first time I went was just mind blowing, just to see these two worlds collide that you usually never see. So, absolutely, like having that input from the patients themselves is obviously, I think, quite key to a lot of the research that we do as well. Now, Maria, a question for you specifically. How did you find the experience of giving this talk without an audience, like, and having to film something in advance? It's, a lot of the trainings that are done for this event comes from the, the initial basis that, that you are going to have an audience and you're going to be sort of engage with them. So without having that element there, how was that for you last year?
I mean, it was still exciting and still very, very different. We were making a recording at a rock music studio, so I literally felt like a rock star there. Yeah, it was just one guy standing there filming me. And like in my mind, I saw all the patients or participants, the general public that I would address normally at PAINtalks. So yeah, it was different. I can't say it was worse, just different. I'm hoping that the pandemic will be over and I'll get to make speeches in front of audience and general public at one point. But I don't think that I will ever be recorded at a rock studio anymore. So yeah, I had to use the power of my imagination a lot.
Yeah, definitely. Especially with, the restrictions last year is very difficult. And, a lot of changes had to be made so quickly. It's, especially with an event this size, it's not easy to shift things from an in-person event to online, and purely online as well. So it's, it's very, it's very difficult sometimes, But what did you find the most memorable about your experience, or what did you find the most enjoyable? Maria, we'll start with you.
Mm-hmm. Most enjoyable. As strange as it sounds, actually, like giving the talk, the rush of adrenaline that you get when you're standing on that stage and the cameras are on you and you go in the zone. You're not just regurgitating your rehearsed speech. No, you just, at some point, you start telling the story, and it's scary and absolutely fantastic.
How about you, Jamie?
So this is going to sound kind of odd. For me, one of the more enjoyable parts is I'm not actually a very sociable person. And so going up on the stage kind of felt like a little bit like acting, which was like kind of exciting. Not only that, is like I had pre-written some of my jokes and I wasn't sure whether or not that was going to go over well. And you can't tell in the YouTube video, but it did go over quite well in the auditorium. But that was probably like one of the more enjoyable parts, is like, like you practice and you work and you try really hard I worked really, really hard on this talk, and to know that it was like really successful, and to have people come up to me afterward telling me that I did a great job. And, you know, it's just kind of, it's really, I don't know, like invigorating. I don't know how to like explain it. It's just so satisfying to know that like the work that you put in like was so, was worth it. And so it was, I thought that was probably one of the more enjoyable parts, is knowing that like for me, it was the relief that it was over, because I had a lot of anxiety and like work, and like you never know if like you're gonna mess up. And one of the things that Denise was saying was that, you know, like if you mess up, no one's gonna know. And so that was like really helpful, because oftentimes, like as I said, like I over prepare and I overwork, and just getting up there and doing it and knowing that it went well, and everyone coming to you afterwards and talking to you about your actual research. And, you know, when someone comes up to you and talks about your research, it's always very exciting.
Absolutely. I think it's one of the best things. Seeing the event come together, it just is, it's just a beautiful thing, especially with the 2019 version where you have the audience, and then even in the 2020, just, you know, on YouTube, being online and just seeing that, you know, all the months of work that you guys put in, you know, and, you know, it's just coming together into like one big, beautiful event is just absolutely mind-blowing and amazing. So yeah, we're doing really well with the interview itself. I think we're on our last question. I think it's something that we already touched upon, but I just want to get your like quick answers to this, just to drive home the message. So what would be your message to someone who is still unsure about applying for PAINtalks this year? Jamie, we'll start with you.
I'm going to steal Nike's catchphrase, and I'm just going to say, just do it. Because if you don't, then like you're going to miss out on a fantastic opportunity.
And how about you, Maria?
Jimmy, you read my mind. I was going to go with just do it. There's nothing like it. I can assure anyone who has doubts, you won't get a chance like that. It is unforgettable. Yes, it's a lot of hard work, and it pays off big time at the end. If you need any inspiration, just have a look at the videos from previous years. It's really cool.
So thank you. To conclude our interview, I'd like to thank you both for taking your time to be a part of this. And I think I speak for everyone when I say we're all really excited to see what you guys both do next. So, you know, really excited about everything. In terms of PAINtalks 2021 this year, will be taking place on November 5th. So save the date, everyone who's watching. And the applications for CPS and NAPS applicants are going to be open on May 24th. So we're really looking forward to getting all of your applications. Thank you.